Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are discussing one of my personal favorite battleships in game, and one of the, if not the best battleship in game in my humble opinion. That is the Tier 10 American Techline battleship, the Montana. Now, the Montana is incredibly old. She is tied with the Yami for being the oldest Tier 10 battleship in game, as the American battleship line and the Japanese battleship line were the first two battleship lines in game. Despite that fact, despite this ship being darn near a decade old, she has managed to, in many cases, improve with age and continue to hang in there. And keep in mind, this is a battleship that has 16-inch guns at Tier 10. In a world where we now have 20-inch, 18-inch, so many 18-inch guns at Tier 10 or in the Tier 10 matchmaking bracket, this ship with its measly little 16-inch guns has managed to hang in there, and again, in my opinion, get a lot better with age. So what does make the Montana so good, in my opinion? Why do I think you should definitely grind it out? Well, she has quite a few things going for her. First off, her guns are quite good, and they have, well, continued to hold up quite well in today's World of Warships. So she is armed with 12 16-inch guns at Tier 10, which again isn't really large by Tier 10 standards. Even back in the day when we started to get more and more Tier 10 ships, the Montana's guns have always been on the smaller-ish side. Obviously not as small as something like the Mecklenburg, but that's a special case. But she does come equipped with the American Mark 8 Super Heavy AP, giving her AP shells the damage alpha of much larger caliber shells. Meaning that when the shells do pin and get those juicy pins, she's doing quite a sizable amount of damage per salvo, especially of course when she can citadel enemy ships. Now, the Mark 8 Super Heavy AP shell is, well, super heavy. So one of the trade-offs is that the shells fly quite slowly through the air in comparison to, of course, other battleship caliber guns, especially other 16-inch guns. I mean, like the Tier 8, the North Carolina with her super heavy shells, because she gets the shorter barrels, those shells come out the tubes at 702 meters a second. Now, the Montana with her larger, well, sorry, not larger guns, but longer barrel, they come out the tubes at around 720, 730, 740 meters a second, with terrible air drag stats, and the arcs make them just take 6 years to get to the target. But that's actually quite good when you're dealing with cruisers, because the shells are moving slower, meaning you tend to overpin cruisers a lot less, and you'll find yourself blapping pretty much any cruiser that slips up and shows your broadside. And the Montana, thanks to, again, the slow-moving shells, they don't overpin the cruiser's armor, and then they have the high alpha damage on top of that, so she's really good at blapping cruisers. But make no mistake, from within, 15, 16, 17 kilometers, the shells are pretty comfortable to use. You just have to give them a little bit more lead when it comes to leading the target, and they will do many, many terrible things to the target ship if they can pin it right, if their armor isn't thick enough, or if they're not angled. It's never a good idea selling broadside to a Montana. And compound that with the fact that the Montana's dispersion is among the best in the game, especially once you slot the Artillery Plotter New Mod 2 module that gives the guns a incredibly consistent dispersion pattern. Now, I'm not saying that the dispersion is tight, I'm saying it is consistent. Meaning that once you get used to it, you have a pretty good idea of where your shells are going to go once they leave the barrels of your gun, and it is a pretty nice, again, not super tight pattern, but a nice, tighter-ish pattern, if you will. Every now and then, of course, she does get the random salvo because, that is RNG. But overall, in comparison to other battleship guns at Tier 10, very consistent guns, in my opinion, and from what I've seen playing the ship. So, her guns are great. The hull itself is pretty nice, too. The Montana armor isn't by any means the toughest Tier 10 battleship armor, but it's a pretty tough little boat. Her citadel is right at the waterline once you have the torpedo protection and then the armor added on top of it. There's only a little itty bitty sliver that is exposed, and typically that can only be found when you're turning, hard over to port or to starboard. Obviously, she doesn't have, like Soviet battleship armor, 32 millimeter bow, 32 millimeter stern, so of course you can get overmatched by, 460 millimeter and above guns. But the ship does sit pretty low in the water, and the armor is still very much present. So if you can angle, which, hopefully by tier 10 you figure that out, it's a pretty tough little ship when it comes to the armor. Now, here's where things start to get really funny, and what spurred me on talking about the Montana for today's video. So the Montana, the Iowa, and the North Carolina, and the Colorado, back in the day, all had standard battleship hills. Wargaming started to feel bad for the Colorado because it is a Tier 7 battleship that's massive and stuck going 20 knots. So the Colorado got an improved battleship hill, meaning that it heals back more damage than your average Tier 7 battleship hill. Well, a little while later, Wargaming went and added that hill to the North Carolina, the Iowa, and then the Montana. So now, the upper half of the line gets this improved American battleship hill, which heals back more HP than your normal, same-tiered battleship hill, to compensate them for having, again, not the best armor scheme at higher tier with all the additions of, all these HE-spammy ships and larger caliber guns at higher tier compared to when these ships first came out. Keep in mind, we're talking years after these ships have been out, right? Like, it's been a pretty interesting time with what Wargaming's added at this point into the game. So the Montana, Iowa, and the North Carolina get those heals, and the Iowa even gets a Citadel, slammed down to below the surface of the water as well. So that happens. So now you have the Montana, which already was fairly tanky, getting an improved heal. That's pretty cool. And then a little while after that, Wargaming, or actually I think it was shortly after that, Wargaming goes and starts adding in the unique upgrades for ships, meaning that, once you grind to tier 10, you can grind a little bit more and get these unique upgrades for your ships. That's right, back in the day, guys, we didn't have to spend research imperial points on unique upgrades. We just got them, and actually they were legendary mods back in the day, but now they're unique upgrades. So since I played the Montana so much, as it was my first tier 10 battleship, I did get the Montana unique upgrade, but I didn't really start using it till a couple of years ago. Now, the Montana unique upgrade is pretty dang nice. So what it does for your Montana once you have unlocked it and slapped it on to your Montana is, well, some things that many battleship players would very much enjoy. So it decreases the burn time for your Montana by 10%. Also decreases the flooding recovery time for your Montana by 10% as well. And then it then gives you a 30% buff to your rudder shift time and a 70% buff to the repair time for your steering gears. So it makes the Montana more maneuverable and tankier, because now if you go for a full build, meaning you take all the relevant commander skills, the modules, and the flags, you will burn for a mere 31 seconds in your Montana, which is the same time that cruisers burn when they're on fire. And for flooding, only 21 seconds. Not a lot of time to be flooding. So you're taking less damage from fires, less damage for floods, at the cost of giving up your concealment module. So now you have a 15.1 kilometer concealment in your Montana, but you're burning for way less, right? And that's very excellent in today's World of Warships, where, of course, we have all the HE spam, we have all the CVs, all the submarines now. They, I just added in the La Pampa, right, and the Jaeger, So this is a very excellent pickup for anyone that's tired of getting melted down. You might think, well, a 30-second burn time doesn't really make that much of a difference. Oh, yes, it does. Trust me, it does. It's a beautiful thing. You just really don't care about fires for a hot minute in the Montana. So that happened. And then for years, not much happened with the Montana. But then, a couple of patches ago, we had the detonation mechanic removed from the game, and the detonation flag was removed as well, replaced with a new Charlie Kilo flag that gives you a 5% buff to your HP. So now the Montana, who was on the cusp of having 100,000 HP, now has 101,000 HP with the Charlie Kilo flag installed, which is a pretty chunky girl at that moment. But you see, the Charlie Kilo flag, while it does also increase the amount of HP you have, it then, by, extension, improves your heal a little bit. Now, of course, there's the whole argument, well, the heal's still healing the same percentage of HP over time. That's very much true, but it's still a slightly better heal in the moment, and that can very much save you. So now with the Charlie Kilo flag added on, your heal regenerates another 40 points of HP per second, which may not sound like that much, but per heal, you are now healing back another 1200 HP per heal. You can have 5 of these guys. That's another 5,000 HP over your 5 heals. Again, it doesn't really sound like that much overall, and it's really not. But again, in a pinch when you need every single drop of HP that you need, it is a better heal. And of course, stacking that on top of everything that we've talked about so far about the Montana, she's gotten that much better over time with all these changes. So now you have a slightly better heal on your Montana with the Charlie Kilo flag on top of having more HP. If you run the ledge mod, you don't really care about fires too much. So she has become, and again still is in my opinion, one of the better battleships in game. It just keeps not really caring about how old she is. And of course, too, if you go and you drop, Halsey on this ship, you get Confederate, you get his reload buff, you're slinging out these 16-inch shells ridiculously fast now. You'll have, like, what? If you're, on lower HP and you pop Halsey's skill plus Adrenaline Rush, like, probably pretty close to a 20-second flat reload time on these 16-inch guns with the accuracy module. So the Montana just continues to age with such grace. Yeah, she only has 16-inch guns, but I'll take 16-inch guns that are, consistent. You can learn the pattern very easily, that utterly obliterate cruisers that are silly and sell broadside to you. I mean, battleships too. It's not that rare for a Montana to rip 25 to 30k HP off of your broadside just through sheer pins and not even through citadel damage. Again, thanks to the improved alpha damage of the American Mark 8 Super Heavy AP shell, right? I mean, selling broadside to Montana, again, very bad thing for your health. Now, you might also be thinking, too, well, Sealer, I see Montanas get murdered all the time in the dumbest ways possible. Well, you see, especially on the North American server, many a player are going up the American battleship tech tree as their first line. It's one that I would highly recommend, and I do highly recommend because it is a very new player-friendly line, and that is unfortunately why you see a lot of Iowas, North Carolinas, and Montana selling broadside and getting slapped and utterly deleted by, every weapon system in the game. So that's where a lot of that's coming in. But like, again, with what we've talked about in today's video, you can come back to the American battleship line and have the Montana be here, which is just, again, one of the best battleships in the game, waiting for you once you've, honed your skills. And it's a very deadly ship once you have someone in it that knows what they're doing. And again, if you have the unique upgrade, a very survivable one in today's World of Warships. So that's my bit on the Montana, guys. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Wednesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.